No microtransactions, it doesn't even work online. You can get your credits fairly easily, buy some nice cars, upgrade them. If you make a new Gran Turismo game, you can learn a few things from this one. Hey everybody, Gran Turismo 7 minus 6 equals Uno. Let's have a look at this old game that I've never played. We never owned a console, back home only a PC, which at this point in history, 1997, was lagging behind the PlayStation because of 3D acceleration being a bit early then. So I played this for 10 minutes at a friend's house on a tiny CRT. My eyes still haven't recovered, I think, from staring at that. A few things first. Here in the options, I found it very important to have the chase view set to tight, so it's quicker to follow the car and it gives you a better feel of changing of direction. It was personally a big preference. And here in steering, see what I've done is I've selected the Neck-Con controller, which is probably some old weird analog thingy available for the PlayStation. Did a bit of remapping, and that allows you to use proper analog controls in the game. So you have the steering wheel there. Here you can quite easily set the range of the controls, which by default for some reason aren't full. So you have to mess with this, and here you can see the blue bit is the dead zone, very small dead zone on the triggers for acceleration and brake, and on the little joystick for steering. Minimal dead zone, maximum range. It's still fairly sensitive, but this works best for me. Reason why the digital controls are a bit tricky to use is that back in the day, well, there were dual analog controls available, but I think a lot of PlayStations were not sold with it. You had only the digital D-pad. And using that is quite difficult, especially if you don't go perfectly straight and you hit the brakes, the car will pull in the direction it's sort of still going. So you give nudges with the D-pad, and then unless you're going perfectly straight, say you're going right, and then you brake, the car pulls to the right. It's quite annoying. I didn't enjoy driving it in digital mode, so I feel for the many people back in '97 who didn't have a dual analog, dual shock controller. There is dual shock support as well. You can set it in your emulator and use it here. However, that's got huge dead zones that you cannot adjust. This menu isn't available with DualShock mode. So DualShock, huge dead zones, insensitive, didn't like that as well. But here, sensitive, but at least analog and a bit more usable. We only play simulation mode, obviously. Before we do any driving, I'm surprised how handy it is to use the D-pad for the menus. I always thought, mouse is superior, but no, it's actually, the navigation is surprisingly fluid and simple, which everybody knows except me, because I've never done this before. So, in general, the game has left quite a positive impression relative for its age. I don't mind the license test, I got them all, I've completed quite a bit of the game. It might be a little bit boring, but you do want to get to know the tracks a little bit and the handling a little bit. I found this licensed stuff to be enjoyable. Lots of cars to buy and lots of races to do as well. It's sort of still relatively compact. I think I've done most of the game-ish right now in, say, 15 or 20 hours. But it also feels like achievable, like a fun few hours to spend. So I've done the league. Here you have various increasingly difficulty level sort of leagues. You can do the Sunday Cup as easiest, and then the GT World Cup, which I won. Then you get the end credits of the game, as if that's the highest thing you can achieve. There's lots of special events here, which are actually fun, because sometimes you just want to get the quickest car, but here you have to start with a front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, four-wheel drive car, a lightweight car, that sort of thing. So typical my approach is I get a car, which is you can actually earn credits reasonably easily and buy a nice car. Just show up with a default car, find out that you can not beat the opponents, and then tune the car and then see how that goes. So I sort of like that process, and it worked quite well, and there are quite a few races available. Some very long distance races that I haven't done yet. I don't really feel like that. Quite a few options, and this is, I believe, a higher frame rate. Not quite 60, I don't know, it's a bit, it seems quite high. Nice feature as well for some insane frame rate for back in the day. So how do I go about? Well, let's just buy a car and do a race and talk while we drive. Let's get a Mazda. Haven't driven one yet. There's so many cars here, but I haven't bought that many. So let's see if we can get a used car. They are lighter because of all the rust. So let's see, we got an MX-5 here, 1.6 even. You get the specs. This is fairly nice for Remember the age, it's a 25-ish year old game now. The tire size and information, a bit of text here. I don't know if all the cars have such a elaborate text, but you can learn a bit and then you spend your money. Get in, yes, we've got into the car. So with this car, that's what I typically do. We go to the races. And that special event, for example, well, we've got a rear-wheel drive car. Let's just do this. And while we are driving, let's talk a bit more about the game. Slow revving. Oh. It's not a quick car. So we have analog controls. I can do this fairly precisely now. Or even keep constant speed with a bit of trigger. So I do like this neck-on control input. It's fairly sensitive still. And with the digital input, what I found as well is that the controls are fairly lazy. You still feel it here. If I give it a little tap, the car sort of reacts for quite a long time. It doesn't go back to center. It feels a bit sluggish, the way that the car controls, which is good in like a long, fast corner. You don't have to sort of really accurately use your small stick. What? Yeah. And even with the digital controls, that's fairly easy, because you tap it a few times and it will sort of stick to that line quite well. But the downside is that it's quite sluggish in changes of direction, and it's not that great. But I have never really played any sort of arcade games other than my own sort of creations for AMS that are a bit more arcadey. This car is slow. But here I'm sort of using a mix of fine inputs every now and then, which easily get out of hand. So yeah, it is digital, but the controls aren't great. But I did find this better than dual shock or digital mode. We're probably not gonna be first. The tracks, I do quite like them. There are no real tracks in this game, but they seem like racetrack. There's elevation, there's nice combinations. I do quite like the tracks. They are more in... Oh, plus 28. we might not win this. Even with the rubber banding, that's clearly a thing with the AI. If you're slow, they will also be slow. If you're quick, they will suddenly find a lot of speed. There is a limit to it, and we will not win this race at all. But this is the way I played this game. Show up with a standard car and then find out that it's not gonna cut it, and then upgrade it. So I am battling the controls always a little bit. I think it could be a little better. See, the rubber banding says, yeah, see ya. There's only so much stretch in the rubber bands. So how does it handle? Well, like I said, a bit sluggish even with this light car. There is a bit of difference from car to car and from drivetrain as well. But remember the era, like 24 years ago. The best we had on PC was Need for Speed, which is, I think, a bit more realistic physics-wise, but I should go back to it. I might be talking out of my behind here. But most games on the PC, I remember Screamer. It's very weird physics-wise. This is fairly fluid and smooth. And with the default cars, like the way it is here, grip doesn't seem off the scale. It's fairly controllable. And there's also a form of steering help going on, because it's fairly sensitive off-center. But when I apply full lock on my little joystick into a turn, it seems like you don't get full understeer. It seems to limit the steering angle. That's almost a bit of a problem. With all the cars you get sort of a weird... You can get oversteer on entry. Like that, fairly easily. But on power, unless you go with like 800 horsepower cars, it tends to be sort of a weird chattery understeer bouncing off the low polygon roads. So you have to be smooth, try to be smooth, but the handling seems to be a bit pushy towards corner exit. Oh, I forgot where I was. But overall, I do think it's at this point a simulation relative for its age, where the car doesn't do super silly things. The speeds are old MX-5, realistic-ish, like for the time. The tracks have cool elevation undulations. This is out of the box with a standard car. I was fairly impressed given again the age of the game, how it feels and how reasonably controllable it is with this setup. So that was quite enjoyable. But as you see, we are not winning this race at all, although I did drive very badly. So second lap finished. No, bad, very bad. So now the fun starts. Tweak your car until you can actually beat the AI. As far as I know, you do have to complete one championship. You cannot save the game in between. So there's typically 2, 3, 4 or 5 races you have to do with 2, 3 or 5 laps. You have to complete all that before, in my experience, you can save the game. Of course, with emulators you might do a save state. So we have to leave the championship and go to the tuning shop to tweak the car. And I always forget which icon it is. So we had a Mazda. We need to go to the shop. And, well, let's see. We probably want some better tires. Let's go for racing tires. Soft, obviously. They're expensive, but we got the cash. Yes. I already know for sure that the speed of our car isn't enough. And here you can do things to the engine. But you can see the expected horsepower gain. Well, this is quite reasonable. I must say we can go to stage 2. Well, let's try that. 160 horsepower. Yes. Let's see if we can get that. That's a good value. Good value upgrade there. Can we get to 166? 5,000 for... No, this isn't... You sort of look at the value of each upgrade. I've not had a car where I can increase the displacement yet. I tried it for quite a few cars. It seems that's not an option. Balancing, that's too expensive for almost nothing. This is where the real power comes in, of course. We can go with like a stage 4. Not available. Oh. Only a stage 1 turbo available. And it only adds 1 horsepower. I'm not so sure about that. Let's see. Let's hope we can do it with the upgrades we've installed here. You can do all sorts of stuff with suspension, which also it becomes adjustable, and the transmission and stuff. If you have an American car with tall gear ratios, get a new gearbox and then you can adjust the ratios. It's really cool. You can go with weight reduction. How physically correct everything is, I don't know, but back in the day, having such options for all the cars, some have more options available, like more turbo levels than others. So it's hard to know when you buy a car how far you can take it with tuning before buying the car and trying it out. So you cannot really know if you get 800 horsepower out of your Mazda or 200. So let's see what happens if we take our new car to the same challenge. See if we can get a bit of a challenging race going. So 160 horsepower, same race as just, and some slick tires. Let's see what that does. Because I found the key to having... Oh, they're moving away from me, that's bad. The key to having reasonably enjoyable races is to find that optimum tuning where it is a challenge to win. Oh boy. We might struggle here, boys. Where it's a nice challenge to win, but not impossible. Ooh, I've got more tire than power, that's for sure. AI is not terribly aware of you, I'm afraid. That's a bit of a downside. The AI is... the rubber banding is an issue. And you think I'm being rude, well, they will be very rude to you as well. They don't seem to have any awareness of where you are. Oh, the body roll on that. But this is fairly good racing relatively for this game. I find myself in a car now that has more grip, so That's nice, but it's lacking a little bit on the straights. I try to race fairly, but then they don't, so it does become a bit of a banger fest at times. There is a strong suck effect, although, see, that's, thank you. Bump drafting was invented with Gran Turismo 1. But this is what I would consider a reasonable experience where... Oh, struggle. You see, they make mistakes, as do I, but... So the AI, yeah, they make some mistakes, that's reasonably nice. They are not aware of you and the rubber banding, so racing the AI is a bit... It takes a bit of imagination to think that you're doing a cool race. In fact, you're driving stupidity against stupidity. Oh, the second lap already. I gotta move on, see if I can win this. He's off the track. One more corner to go, but my straight line speed is not great. I should be able to outbrake him though. And this positioning, like I did, like get side by side with the other one, that's difficult with the digital controls, but perhaps it's just my boomer age. No, no, no. Ah, second or third. Where? Oh, third. Don't have the speed. So this is what I found reasonably enjoyable, because there are so many race series you can do where you just get a car, tune it to the level where it's fun to drive this dumb AI. You get some points, some credits for pole position, for winning the race. Every position you get credits, and I do find credits are fairly easy to come by. This is the first car I got, and I just tweaked it until it was upgraded it, pimped it until it was quite quick. So let's get into this car and see what sort of options we get. But let's give us a bit more of a challenge. Go with the tuned car. This is gonna be terrible. We won't be able to race them. So here I've upgraded my car to a pretty high level. You can change parts of the car. If you had multiple tires, you can change them here. You don't have to go back to the dealer to do that. So that's nice. You can change your main parts here. That's cool. You can also change the settings if your upgrades have settings. For example, if you get the suspension, you can do different spring rates, the ride heights, the dampers. That must say some of these settings. I doubt what they do. You can sort of have your front versus rear brakes a bit. You can set your boost. Very important, you can do your gear ratios. That's pretty nice actually. Sometimes even for each track, if you've got a bit of an underpowered car, you can get a bit of performance back by giving it better ratios. That's nice if you have aero on the car, which you cannot buy. So, well, maybe if you do the race upgrade of the car, but some cars have aero, some don't, and this is not really adjustable on this car. But it's nice that you can do, like for 1997, a lot of changes to the car. They do affect things somehow a little bit, but I'm not sure it is the simulation quality we've come to expect. And you always have to select manual transmission, but you get used to that. It revs really slowly. There's turbo lag even when revving. So this is as far as it could go with tweaks. Where are we? High speed ring. Get used to the extra grip. So with this car I could not go up to like 600-700 horsepower. This is the maximum turbo available on the RX-7 here. Very good brakes. You get slides into the corners, but for example this left-hander here, now you're sliding, but on exit you're sort of just gonna you go like that to the outside of the turn with not a lot of adjustability in the line. On entry there's a lot of adjustability. I do not mind the sounds really. Well, one or two engine types, there are a limited number of sort of engine sounds, it seems, but this is alright. It loops smoothly some of the time. Some cars have like a sample looping effect. The turbo sounds aren't great, but the tire sounds for its day are fine. The graphics, of course, now with this emulator are upscaled a little bit. It wouldn't look that nice, but graphically and audibly I find it quite acceptable. Ooh, we didn't do well. So this is against tuned cars, but there are some quick ones here. The Civic, always be afraid of the Civic. Let's see if we can get not last. Those gear ratios are important because the engine is so slow revving. Your first gear has to be a bit short, otherwise you really cannot get away if you get spun out, for example, by an AI. We might have a race on our hands. We might just. I do not mind the rubber banding that much, given how this game allows you to take such a variety of cars to the races, different tuning levels. Oh, I'm lacking a gear here, that's not good. So, and the races are not really spectacular battles, it's quite crude. So given the crudity of the game in this area with racing the AI, the rubber banding is sort of okay by me. You just have to put it into perspective, but I'm not automatically winning this race with this car against this opposition on this track. This is a high-speed track. But you see the banking and elevation changes. It's not real tracks, but there is enough going on that makes them interesting. Some quick chicanes on some other tracks. Oh, we're not gonna do it. Oh, these are 5 laps. So the beauty of this longer race is you also earn a lot more credits. Here you can't really control the car, you just keep it full lock and it sort of takes a line. I'm afraid we're gonna be passed on the straight again. So this is really just full lock inputs and hope you make it. The slipstream effect is huge. I'm just going to go offline hoping that AI is too stupid to get into the slipstream. Can we catch the red pixels? Let's see. Oh, I really need another gear. That wasn't bad. It's pretty hard, even with the analog controls, to be super consistent, I find. So the crudity of the AI and the rubber banding, everything, it sort of works because this is not a hyper precision in my hands game to begin with. So I am definitely enjoying myself now, trying to chase this red pixel in my blue pixel. Having some form of control over my car that I upgraded, spent a lot of credits on. Final lap, I think we'll struggle here. Running wide. So doing laps within 1/10 of a second where your ghost would be identical with lines and stuff, I cannot do it. But the game is forgiving enough, you don't just spin out that easily, even though it is sim-ish. So the whole balance of realism and control and AI, it sort of works for me, although you do watch through those 25-year-old glasses, of course. So we managed to get P2 there, so this is quite fun, you know. You get to other tracks where my car is probably better. This is a quick track and my speed wasn't the best. So I might still have a chance of this championship. But being a this is relatively long, 5-lap race, I think we'll get quite a few credits even for P2. So 30 grand for P2, I think it's 50 for P1, so that's nice. You can really easily get like a new car with 1 or 2 second places, and then a few more results, and you can upgrade it. So that's not a problem at all. I find that's not a grind in any way. Well, let's see where we go next. Grand Valley 2. So the amount of tracks isn't great, but they are you have them reversed, and there are a couple of variants of the tracks available. And I don't really think that the number of tracks is a big downside, in the sense that if there were more, of course there would be more tracks, but at some point you know them, and then it becomes just another track to drive. The thing that limits the game, in my opinion, isn't the tracks, it's more that there's limited skill in the AI. They're quite dumb, and it's more a case of just repeating that, getting a car, tuning it until you can just about win. You have to sort of force yourself to make it challenging, because it's easy to over-upgrade a quick car and just drive away from everybody. And there's rinse and repeat, really. There might be 10 or so championships you can do, but it's kind of the same, just in different sort of cars, front wheel drive or tuned or not tuned. So that becomes samey more than the tracks, because in my opinion the tracks are fine. There is some variety in there, that's fine. Just the racing itself isn't, it's a bit arcade, simcade-ish with the racing, and the controls don't really allow that fine tuning of lines and skills. Again, boomer here. So I don't mind the tracks, and you can see with this tuned car compared to the Mazda, which I probably could say was somewhat of a sim, this is more towards arcade. The quicker the cars get, the more you tune them, the more sort of arcade it feels, and then the racing becomes more sort of a bashing into the opponents at some point. So it has its limitations, I think, as a sim, absolutely speaking as a sim. But as a sim arcade, simcade sort of fun few hours where most of the races are just 5 laps or less, I genuinely enjoyed this more than I expected I would. So let's do this race and then do a really quick car to get some impression of that, and then see if I forgot anything. Gotta be braking. Yeah, oh no, bad line. Oh. Slight nudge, friendly gestures. The torque band is quite small once you get the turbos going. Miss shift, how can you miss shift? I can. Oh, it's a long track. Oh, this is not good. Not last though, not last. So given the platform, sort of a console, not necessarily known for simulations, given the time, very early 3D accelerated graphics and gameplay. It feels to me like this is quite an achievement for a game of 97, with a lot of cars many you will never drive, a lot of tuning options that make perhaps physically not always as much sense, but they do give it an option to personalize and tweak. Given its day, like its age and the state of sim racing, then this is definitely a really cool game that I enjoyed more. Oh, if I knew how to brake. There are definitely some very weird things with the physics as well. But, you know, that's the thing, if you start taking it too seriously, yeah, of course it falls apart a little bit. But that's why the few laps per race, forgiving wall riding, unless you manage to scrape the inside, that can really slow you down. See, like that, you can really come to a halt on the inside, yet you can ride the outside walls quite well, which is a bit annoying. It looks and feels really convincing for a simcade game. I think that's the best qualification. Sim if you keep to the stock cars and you put on your 25-year-old sim racing hat. Simcade with a bit more sort of modern outlook on things, but thoroughly enjoyable. Let's just quit this and do a... I was 5th. Didn't wanna, you know, I wasn't gonna win that. Let's get to my garage. Get into my LM edition. So you also win a car. If you win a championship, you get a free car. Like the Camaro, which is fairly useless until you tweak it. I got the Chaser, which is one of the quick racing cars. 655 horsepower, that'll do. Let's do the GT League. The highest class. I'm a classy guy. Let's end classy. So here I did spend a bit of time with the setup, just trying different things, and it was a bit of a struggle to feel a lot of difference. Here you do have options to change the downforce. It seems like the understeer you get, corner exit, is more sort of a limit of the steering help not working to your advantage. The setup only does so many things. But let's see what we can do. Manual transmission. To get used to the speed. The quicker the cars are, the weirder they sort of feel, I must say. This is an example of the sound that it doesn't loop very well. Oh, that's pretty bad. I could have done better, I think. I haven't talked about the graphics, have I? Well, oh yeah, that's a bit of understeer. Running an emulator, I've ticked some boxes that... Oh, big understeer. Yeah, the quick cars really suffer from patience on the way out. It's very important. It feels like the difference in grip from a tuned regular car is great everywhere except corner exit, where you're just limited by whatever. I'm just gonna run wide. It doesn't feel like I'm on the limit, but it just won't make the turn. Setup do a little bit, but I find the graphics they're pretty good, but I've ticked some options in the emulator, so it... Oh yeah, that was qualifying over already. There was some wobbly textures and geometry in the old PlayStation, and of course the beauty of emulation is you can tweak those things to make it look a little better. But, you know, the graphics and sound, and it's sort of 30 FPS, obviously 60 was almost impossible. Overall the impression is just polished and finished, and I really did not expect that I would spend 15 hours in an emulator playing a 25-year-old game. And this is the highest class racing, guys. This is the limit. Understeer. Now there are some things you might do, like going with hard rear tires and soft front tires. I haven't really gotten to the bottom of it yet. Oh, so understeer. But it's fairly stable now otherwise, and I wouldn't want to sacrifice too much of that. It's nice that it has a slipstream effect, although that's not new. Formula 1 Grand Prix 1991 had it as well. That looks like a Scooby. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Let's turn here. That's super forgiving. I mean, of course, this should have been race ending. Wait. Understeer. We can still win this though. The highest class of racing. Just hope you make it. Yeah, that was good. Final lap. Just be a bit patient. Not too bad. We might win this. Just one more corner, effectively. Victory. Is there anything I forgot? Probably. So, as a PC gamer, first time playing Gran Turismo 1. No microtransactions. It doesn't even work online. You can get your credits fairly easily, buy some nice cars, upgrade them. You'd say, what if you make a new Gran Turismo game, you can learn a few things from this one. First, on that bombshell, guys, thanks for watching. And yeah, who knows, might play Gran Turismo 2 in a bit. A few more licenses there. Bye bye.